Neo. Every day, Americans buy 200 million loaves of sliced white bread. Most assume it's mixed, shaped, and baked in something close to a kitchen. It isn't. The modern loaf moves through a factory system borrowed from automobile production, where dough never rests in a single place and human hands almost never touch it. For most of history, bread was a batch process. A baker mixed flour and water, let the dough rise for hours, shaped it by hand, and baked it in an oven. One person could make dozens of loaves in a day, but not hundreds, and definitely not thousands. Every loaf required time, skill, and direct attention. The process didn't scale because fermentation wouldn't wait, and ovens couldn't run continuously without losing heat. A bakery was a place where you waited for dough to do what dough does naturally, which meant waiting for biology to finish on its own schedule. By the early 20th century, American cities were growing faster than bakeries could supply them. Immigrants wanted familiar bread. Workers needed cheap calories. Grocers wanted product that didn't spoil by afternoon. But traditional baking hit a hard limit. Dough had to rest, and rest meant idle space, idle time, and idle labor. A bakery could double its mixers and ovens, but it still couldn't double its output without doubling its floor space and waiting hours for each batch to proof. The bottleneck wasn't equipment, it was time itself. The breakthrough came from outside the baking industry. In 1901, Ransom Eli Olds introduced the assembly line to automobile manufacturing. Instead of building one car at a time in a single bay, workers stood at fixed stations while the unfinished product moved past them. Each worker added one component. The car rolled forward. No one waited. No one carried parts across the shop floor. The Oldsmobile curved dash became the first mass-produced automobile because the line eliminated idle time. The concept was simple: keep the product moving and bring the work to the product, not the other way around. Bakers noticed, if a car could move through stations, why not dough? The constraint wasn't the idea, it was chemistry. Dough is alive. Yeast ferments, gluten develops, temperature matters. If you move dough too early, it doesn't rise. If you move it too late, it overproofs and collapses. A car can sit half-assembled without consequence. Dough cannot. The living nature of bread meant the assembly line would have to control biology, not just motion. The solution required splitting fermentation into controlled stages and speeding each one up. In the 1920s, bakeries began using dough dividers that cut bulk dough into uniform pieces without hand-weighing. Mechanical rounders shaped those pieces into smooth balls. Proofers became climate-controlled cabinets where dough rose on moving racks at precise temperature and humidity. The dough no longer rested on a wooden table. It rested on a conveyor already in motion toward the next station. Each stage became shorter, more predictable, and less dependent on a baker's judgment. By the 1930s, the continuous mix process arrived. Instead of mixing one batch, resting it, and mixing another, factories fed flour, water, yeast, and additives into a machine that mixed and fermented simultaneously. Dough came out the other end in a steady stream, already developed, ready to divide. A factory could now produce dough 24 hours a day without stopping the line to wait for fermentation. The process no longer depended on time. It depended on chemistry and engineering. Fermentation still happened, but it happened on the move. The trade-off was texture and flavor. Traditional bread develops complex taste during long, slow fermentation. Wild bacteria and yeast produce acids and alcohols that create depth. Continuous mixed dough ferments for minutes, not hours. The flavor is milder, simpler, more uniform. To compensate, industrial bakeries add dough conditioners, enzymes that strengthen gluten faster, emulsifiers that soften crumb, and preservatives that extend shelf life. The loaf tastes consistent because it's chemically consistent, not because it aged naturally. The predictability that made the assembly line possible also flattened what bread could be. Opponents argue the assembly line loaf sacrificed craft for speed. In the 1970s, critics called industrial white bread nutritionally empty and accused manufacturers of stripping wheat, then adding synthetic vitamins to meet legal minimums. Some of those critiques were fair. Refined white flour removes the bran and germ, which contain fiber, minerals, and natural oils. Enrichment adds back some nutrients, but not all. The result is a product optimized for production efficiency and shelf stability, not for traditional flavor or whole-grain nutrition. The line produced bread that met a regulatory standard, not a culinary one. Supporters counter that the assembly line made bread affordable and safe. Before industrial production, urban bakeries were often unsanitary. Workers handled dough with bare hands. Rats infested storerooms. Flour sat in open barrels. Continuous production in enclosed systems reduced contamination. Mechanization reduced labor costs, which reduced price. A family that couldn't afford artisan bread could afford factory bread. The question wasn't whether factory bread was ideal. The question was whether it was better than no bread, or than bread baked in a tenement basement. Access mattered more than perfection. Today, a single industrial bakery can produce 300,000 loaves in a day. Dough enters one end of a building-length line and exits the other as sliced, bagged product ready for trucks. The entire process, from mixer to wrapper, takes less than 4 hours. No human shapes a loaf. No human decides when it's done. Sensors measure dough temperature, moisture, and rise. Software adjusts mixing speed, proofer humidity, and oven time in real time. The system runs faster and more consistently than any human crew could. What once required a dozen bakers now requires 2 technicians and a maintenance schedule. But efficiency has costs beyond flavor. The assembly line model concentrates production in fewer, larger facilities. In 1950, the United States had more than 5,000 commercial bakeries. Today, fewer than 3,000 remain, and a handful of corporations control most grocery shelf bread. When a single factory supplies a region, a breakdown or contamination event can remove millions of loaves from the supply chain overnight. The system is efficient when it works and fragile when it doesn't. Centralization traded local redundancy for economies of scale. The assembly line also changed what bread means. For most of human history, bread was local. You knew the baker, or you baked it yourself. Recipes varied by region, season, and available grain. Bread had texture, irregularity, and a short life. It went stale by evening, which meant you bought it often and wasted little. Industrial bread is designed not to stale. It's uniform across a continent. It lasts a week in a bag. It's a manufactured food product that happens to come from wheat, not a craft object that happens to be edible. The physical object stayed the same. The relationship to it changed completely. Whether that's progress depends on what you value. The assembly line made bread cheaper, safer, and more available than at any point in history. It also made bread less distinct, less regional, and less connected to the people who grow wheat or the people who eat it. The line didn't just speed up production, it turned bread into a volume commodity, governed by the same manufacturing logic that builds cars, appliances, and packaged goods. The loaf on the shelf isn't the result of a baker's judgment. It's the output of a system engineered to eliminate variation, minimize cost, and maximize throughput. The assembly line solved the problem it was designed to solve. It fed cities, it standardized quality, it reduced price, but it also created a new problem. A food system where efficiency and scale matter more than flavor, craft, or connection to place. The modern loaf is a triumph of industrial engineering. Whether it's a triumph of bread depends on what you think bread is supposed to be. The line didn't change bread. It changed what we expect bread to do and what we're willing to give up to get it. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.